The Finals, a brand new multiplayer FPS game released by newly founded Embark Studios. If you take a look at my channel real quick, you'll mostly see reviews on single-player, narrative-driven games, and while I may dabble in my share of multiplayer titles, I mostly play single-player games. It's just kind of always been my preference. Mostly because many recent multiplayer titles end up feeling quite samey and not as fresh as I'd like them to feel. I mean, hey, back in my day, I was hopping on COD, Rainbow Six, and Battlefield like anyone else, but I don't know, I guess I've just gotten a bit tired of those games the more I played them, which is why I mostly focus on reviewing single-player games, because I just prefer them. But the Finals is honestly one of the most fresh and exciting multiplayer games that I've played as of late. And in today's video, I'm going to be explaining what's so great about the Finals and why you really should play it. Firstly, let's go over what the Finals actually is and who made it. The Finals is a multiplayer FPS game with a twist. Actually, a few twists. The first and most notable one, in my opinion, is the fully destructive environments. If you see a wall in this game, there's a good 99% chance you can blow it up entirely. I mean, you can bring down buildings here, and it's not just a gimmick. There have actually been a few times where I have used this mechanic to my advantage. I might see an objective point right above me that's being strongly defended by an enemy team with all kinds of traps and whatnot. But instead of running up the stairs and getting killed, I instead blow open the floor beneath them and drop them right down to me where I have the advantage. But it's not just the destructive environments, it's the way objects react to your destruction. You can bring down enemies to your level, yes, but you can also bring down the objective itself to your level. Usually in the form of a safe called a cash out. And I can't even begin to describe the many ways you can use destruction to your advantage while defending a point. These environments work so well with the gameplay of the Finals, and this game simply wouldn't be what it is without these destructive environments. If you watching this video are getting an image of Rainbow Six Siege or Battlefield in your head, wipe that instantly, because this game goes far beyond either of those games in terms of destructive environments. Now the next twist in this game are the classes. Now I know what you're thinking, classes? There's classes in every multiplayer game. I mean, they've got it in Overwatch, Team Fortress 2, whatever, right? Yes, you're right, classes in a multiplayer title is fairly, popular. It's everywhere, right? But the way classes work here are new. There's a light, medium, and heavy build. Light having the least amount of health, being able to move around the fastest, and having the highest damaging weapons, making them a class more oriented around flanking your enemy and dipping in and out of gunfights. Medium having an average health pool and decent movement speed. Medium primarily focuses on healing and setting traps where needed, as well as having some decent damaging capabilities. And heavy usually playing the tank role, as well as the demolitionist. So I know what you're thinking, none of this sounds new, what's so special about this class system? This is what's so special about the class system. Something that you might have noticed is that each of these classes are capable of playing more than one role at a time. In your traditional hero shooter, you've got, DPS characters, flank characters, support, tank, and defense, stuff like that, right? But here in the Finals, it doesn't have a large variety of heroes to choose from like Overwatch does, for example. They only have 3 classes, light, medium, and heavy, and they're still attempting to be a hero shooter while keeping in line with the classic deathmatch style modes we see in many multiplayer shooters today. So what they've done is, instead of limiting the teamwork capabilities of these many classes, they've taken your standard support, tank, defense, DPS, and flank characteristics and applied them to only 3 classes, light, medium, and heavy, allowing you, the player, to switch between many gadgets and perks to build up your own playstyle. Let's look at the light class, for example. If you want to play as a traditional DPS character, go for it. Pick the light class with the M11 as your primary weapon and dash ability to close the gap quickly. But if you want to play as a flank character, again you go with the light class, but this time you'll take the sword or the silenced pistol instead over the M11, as well as the invisibility cloak over the dash. Do you see how one class is capable of performing multiple playstyles depending on the choices the player makes? That is the beauty of the finals, and I really believe that Embark has done a fantastic job in this regard. Usually in a hero shooter, certain characters specialize in one aspect. You have a character that specializes in healing, another one that specializes as a tank. Here, Embark let you choose how to properly tune and build your own playstyle while still keeping the traditional class system you've come to know with light, medium, and heavy classes. But they give you the power to choose how to play beyond just picking a character and maining them. There's no real main here. You know, you hear about other games, oh, who do you main? I main this character, I main that character. Here it's not like that because you have multiple ways that you can play with just one individual class, and I think that's fantastic. But now let's talk about Embark Studios and their history. Now what if I said, this is Embark Studios' first ever game? It's a bit hard to believe, right? I mean, you just look at this, and you think, this has to be the work of some really talented developers who have been working in the industry for tons of years, and have spent a long time making this. Now, you would be right. This is a new studio, but it's made up of some really talented developers who have worked on some big budget games, such as Battlefield, Mirror's Edge, and Star Wars Battlefront, and a few others too. Once you hear some of those games that they've previously worked on, a clearer image begins to emerge in your mind. I mean, just look at this game. It's basically Battlefield with the visual style of Mirror's Edge combined into one. And it just looks stunning. I have never seen this type of aesthetic before in a multiplayer game, and when you combine the visuals of this game with this tournament kind of setting that the developers are going for, you get a game that has a strong and distinct style. Every corner of this game, from its visuals to its soundtrack to even its somewhat annoying announcers, it's bleeding with style. It honestly gives this feeling of playing in like an esports match without the level of skill required to earn your place there. Something else worth noting is that this game is really good at creating moments that feel scripted but aren't. Not quite on the level of a Battlefield game, for example, but seeing a building collapse never gets old, and there have been so many times where I've been playing and just about managed to clutch up in the last few seconds of the match, which usually makes me and the rest of my team lose our minds. And speaking of a team, you'll need one. The finals is mostly played with 3 teams of 3 or 4 teams of 3. And teamwork and communication are vital if you intend on succeeding in this game. However, recently they added a solo option for the game mode Banquet, a mode where upon killing an enemy, they drop money and you need to go to a deposit point and drop off that money. I'll talk a bit more about the game modes a bit later, but that's just a standard premise. But also, this solo mode is more experimental, and it really is a lot more fun if you do get some friends to play with you. So I highly recommend getting some of your friends to download this game. And yeah, just overall, you should probably play this game with at least 2 other friends in a group of 3. You'll have a lot more fun. Also, while on the topic of game modes, let's talk about the game modes and the maps. Quite frankly, there aren't too many. If you really want to get technical, there are actually only 2 game modes in this game, Cash Out and Banquet. But what actually are these modes? Well, it's simple. In the standard Cash Out mode, there is a vault that 3 teams rush towards to unlock. Once they do, they carry the vault to one of 2 cash out points and defend it until the timer runs out and they cash out. First team to cash out twice wins. It's an extremely simple concept, however it's made extremely more complex with the fantastic level design, destruction, classes, and kits. Banquet is a bit different. There are 4 teams instead of 3, and killing a player will have them drop 1 coin worth $1,000. Your job is to collect as much money as you can and deposit it to a cash out point without dying. If you die, anyone can pick up all the money that you've collected and they can drop it off themselves. There are also some vaults scattered around the map on a rotational cooldown that when opened drop large amounts of money, 5, 6, 7,000. The first team to collectively deposit $40,000 wins. It's a very simple concept, but it's very, very fun. So I may have lied when I said there's only 2 game modes. There is another solo banquet option as I've mentioned before, but there's also a tournament mode and a ranked tournament mode as well. However, the reason I said there's only 2 game modes is the tournament mode is really just cash out, but with an extra team, 2 vaults instead of 1, and 2 cash out points instead of 1. You play a quarter, semi, and final game to determine who is the best team of all, with only 2 teams playing in the final out of the usual 4. It's a lot of fun. I actually think the tournament mode is my favorite mode, but in terms of your actual objective in the game, you're really playing it the same way as cash out, you're just thinking about it a bit differently. While this may not sound like a lot, these modes are actually fantastic, and while it may not be the most varied selection, after about 20 hours played, I still haven't gotten tired of either mode. As for maps, there is still quite a limited selection with only 4 maps. For what it's worth, all those maps are really good, but the maps aren't the remarkable part. What's remarkable is that even with such a limited selection of maps, they still manage to feel extremely fresh each time I play on them. And I think that is in huge part due to the level destruction. Even though you're playing on the same 4 maps, the massive destruction that is possible on these maps makes them feel distinct and fresh even after having played on them dozens of times. You're always approaching a problem differently. You know, maybe this time you'll destroy a different wall than you did last time, or a different ceiling. And you're playing the game with a different mindset, almost always depending on the situation more than the map. Something else worth noting is that this game is still in its first season, and since launching, Embark have done a great job at fixing balancing issues as well as updating the game, and I can only imagine the many improvements and additions this game will see in its many seasons to come. Okay, let's wrap this up by talking about gunplay and traversal. As you may have seen in the background, this is a very vertical game. There are many jump pads, zip lines, and movement-based abilities featured in each of the classes. It's no Titanfall, but you'll be using your environment to move around all the time in this game, and it's a joy to play even when you aren't shooting people. It just really helps that shooting people feels fantastic as well. After picking this game up and playing for only a few minutes, I could already tell, oh yeah, these are the guys who made Battlefield. These weapons feel amazing to use. Their recoil feels appropriate, hit detection always feels right, and each weapon feels fairly balanced and fun to use. This is really one of the only games where almost every playstyle is equally viable. It feels like every gun is about on the same level of quality, but reaches that quality in various different ways, which allows for serious player freedom in designing their loadouts. The many gadgets and super abilities tied to each class feels really well tuned, and there were a total of 0 abilities I felt weren't useful in one way or another. I also really appreciated the longer time to kill here. Apart from the light class, enemies take quite a long time to die, and while this may not be to everyone's liking, I have always been of the belief that a longer time to kill in a multiplayer FPS game always results in higher skilled gunfights. In a game like COD, whoever shoots first wins. Enemies take about 4 to 5 bullets to die, and even the most beginner of beginners could probably get a few kills in COD. But in the finals, because enemies take so long to die, there's a higher skill ceiling. Enemies can outmaneuver you. You'll need to maintain good aim to defeat them because they take so many bullets and they're constantly moving around and jumping. It's good fun. Overall, the finals is a fantastic multiplayer title, with serious industry-pushing technologies and ideas, a well-implemented class system, fantastic level destruction, fun game modes, and great level design. I have also personally had 0 issues with matchmaking. The many gadgets and environmental tools at your disposal here are really fun to use, and it's just an amazing title that you really should go experience. And did I mention it's free? You have absolutely nothing to lose. You could just go on the PlayStation Store or Steam or wherever and download this game like right now. Without a shadow of a doubt, you should absolutely give this game a try. I promise you, you won't regret it.